from the vendors, and NVIDIA, ATI, Intel is out there as well. And you know, for a few $100 you can get these things and put them into your computer, and you can do fantastic things with these graphics cards. So this is really what's enabling us to deal with the explosion of data in medicine. Together with some really nifty work in terms of algorithms, compressing data, extracting the relevant information that people are doing research on. So I'm going to show you a few examples of what we can do. This is a data set that was captured using a CT scanner. You can see this is a full data. It's a woman. You can see the hair. You can see the individual structures of the woman. You can see that there is scattering of X-rays on the teeth, the metal in the teeth. That's where those artifacts are coming from. But fully interactively on standard graphics cards, on a normal computer, I can just put in a clip plane. And of course, all the data is inside. So I can start rotating, I can look at it from different angles. And I can see that this woman had a problem, about 1 meter of phone books in the pile. Looking at what we're doing today with these machines that we have, we can just in a few seconds get 24,000 images out of the body. And that will correspond to about 20 gigabytes of data, or 800 phone books. And the pile will then be 200 meters of phone books. What's about to happen, and we're seeing this, it's beginning, a technology trend that's happening right now, is that we're starting to look at time-resolved situations as well. So we're getting the dynamics, 100,000 books and 16 kilometers of phone books. That's one patient, one data set, and this is what we have to deal with. So this is really the enormous challenge that we have. Already today, this is 25,000 images. You know, imagine the days when we had radiologists doing this. They would put up 25,000 images that would go like this, 25,000. Okay, there is the problem, right? They can't do that anymore. That's impossible. So we have to do something that's a little bit more intelligent than doing this. Okay. So what we do is that we put all these slices together. Imagine that you slice your body in all these directions, and then you try to put the slices back together again into a pile of data, into a block of data. So this is really what we're doing. So this gigabyte or terabyte of data, we're putting it into this block. But of course, the block of data just contains the amount of X-ray that's been absorbed in each point in the human body. So what we need to do is to figure out a way of looking at the things that we do want to look at and make things transparent that we don't want to look at. So transforming the data set into something that looks like this. And this is a challenge. This is a huge challenge for us to do that. Using computers, even though they're getting faster and better all the time, it's a challenge to deal with gigabytes of data, terabytes of data, and extracting the relevant information. I want to look at the heart, I want to look at the blood vessels, I want to look at the liver, maybe even finding the tumor in some cases. So this is where this little dude comes into play. This is my daughter. This is as of 9 a.m. this morning. She's playing a computer game. She's only 2 years old, and she's having a blast. So she's really the driving force behind the development of graphics processing units. As long as kids are playing computer games, graphics is getting better and better and better. So please go back home, tell your kids to play more games, because that's what I need. So what's inside of this machine is what enables me to do the things that I'm doing with the medical data. So really what I'm doing is using these fantastic little devices. And you know, going back maybe 10 years in time, when I got the funding to buy my first graphics computer, it was a huge machine. It was cabinets of processors and storage and everything. I paid about $1 million for that machine.
Ever since I was a little girl, seeing Star Wars for the first time, I've been fascinated by this idea of personal robots. And as a little girl, I loved the idea of a robot that interacted with us much more like a helpful, trusted sidekick, something that would delight us, enrich our lives, and help us save a galaxy or two. So I knew robots like that didn't really exist, but I knew I wanted to build them. So 20 years passed. I am now a graduate student at MIT studying artificial intelligence. The year is 1997, and NASA has just landed the first robot on Mars. But robots are still not at our home, ironically. And I remember thinking about all the reasons why that was the case, but one really struck me. Robotics had really been about interacting with things, not with people. Certainly not in a social way that would be natural for us and would really help have people accept robots into our daily lives. For me, that was the white space. That's what robots could not do yet. And so that year, I started to build this robot Kismet, the world's first social robot. So 3 years later, a lot of programming, working with other graduate students in the lab, Kismet was ready to start interacting with people.
Yeah, I want to show you something. This is a watch that my girlfriend gave me. Yeah, look, it's got a little blue light in it too. Like, I almost lost it this week.
So Kismet interacted with people a lot like kind of a nonverbal child or pre-verbal child, which I assume was fitting because it was really the first of its kind. It didn't speak language, but it didn't matter. This little robot was somehow able to tap into something deeply social within us. And with that, the promise of an entirely new way we could interact with robots. So over the past several years, I've been continuing to explore this interpersonal dimension of robots, now at the Media Lab with my own team of incredibly talented students. And one of my favorite robots is Leonardo. We developed Leonardo in collaboration with Stan Winston Studio. And so I want to show you a special moment for me of Leo. This is Matt Berlin interacting with Leo, introducing Leo to a new object. And because it's new, Leo doesn't really know what to make of it. But sort of like us, he can actually learn about it from watching Matt's reaction.
Hello, Leo. Leo, this is Cookie Monster. Can you find Cookie Monster? Leo, Cookie Monster is very bad. He's very bad, Leo. Cookie Monster is very, very bad. He's a scary monster who wants to get your cookies.
All right, so Leo and Cookie might have gotten off to a little bit of a rough start, but they get along great now. So what I've learned through building these systems is that robots are actually a really intriguing social technology, where it's actually their ability to push our social buttons and to interact with us like a partner that is a core part of their functionality. And with that shift in thinking, we can now start to imagine new questions, new possibilities for robots that we might not have thought about otherwise. But what do I mean when I say push our social buttons? Well, one of the things that we've learned is that if we design these robots to communicate with us using the same body language, the same sort of nonverbal cues that people use, like Nexi, our humanoid robot, is doing here, what we find is that people respond to robots a lot like they respond to people. People use these cues to determine things like how persuasive someone is, how likable, how engaging, how trustworthy. Turns out it's the same for robots. It's turning out now that robots are actually becoming a really interesting new scientific tool to understand human behavior, to answer questions like, how is it that from a brief encounter we're able to make an estimate of how trustworthy another person is? Mimicry is believed to play a role, but how? Is it mimicking of particular gestures that matter? It turns out it's really hard to learn this or understand this from watching people, because when we interact, we do all of these cues automatically. We can't carefully control them because they're subconscious for us. But with a robot, you can. And so in this video here, this is a video taken from David DeSteno's lab at Northeastern University. He's a psychologist we've been collaborating with. There's actually a scientist carefully controlling Nexi's cues to be able to study this question. And the bottom line is the reason why this works is because it turns out people just behave like people, even when interacting with a robot. So given that key insight, we can now start to imagine new kinds of applications for robots. For instance, if robots do respond to our nonverbal cues, maybe they would be a cool new communication technology. So imagine this. What about a robot accessory for your cell phone? You call your friend, she puts her handset in a robot, and bam, you're Amoeba. You can make eye contact, you can talk with your friends, you can move around, you can gesture. Maybe the next best thing to really being there. Or is it? To explore this question, my student Siggy Alderkisson did a study where we brought human participants, people. you.